Welcome. I am Baron Baptiste. Welcome to Disrupting the Drift, the place where we can tell the truth and the truth can be told. Yeah, we're going to talk about something today that I think you'll want to know. And I'll start right here. Consider that you're not free. We're going to talk about freedom. What is it? And how do you get free in your life? And consider you're not free. And what we want to do is have a conversation and look at what keeps you a slave, what keeps you bound up without freedom. And so you'll want to hear what we have to say today. David, how you doing?
Fantastic. Great to be here, Baron.
Yeah. Freedom. What say you about freedom, David?
As I always do, I looked up the definition from the dictionary, and I started laughing because it's a bit ironic. The condition of not being in prison or captivity. I don't know anybody who's not in some state of captivity.
The captivity of their own mind.
Could be.
The prison of their own mind.
Yes.
Yeah. And way of life. Yeah.
Yeah. The second one is even more telling. The condition of being free of restraints, especially the ability to act without control or interference by another or by circumstances. Now, I don't think anybody
without constraints. It said without the ability to act without constraints.
That's right.
Yeah, good.
Look, and when you drive your car, there's a lot of rules that you have to follow in order to drive safely and keep other people safe. But those are, I would say, a certain kind of restraint. Like you can't go too fast. You got to stop at the stop sign. You got to pay attention to all of the indicators that warn you whether or not you're going to end up colliding with somebody else, the bumpers on the road. There's all kinds of constraints. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a constraint or a restraint that necessarily is binding you. But at the same time, the way that you deal with the world that you live in determines whether or not you are lending yourself to being somebody who is in captivity. And what is captivity? That's another interesting question because you might have relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah. How you interact with life.
Yeah.
And your life and the people in your life and the situations in your life. I think it'd be valuable to take a look at what is captivity. What are those things in life that you do or don't do that keep you in captivity, constrained, not free, unfree? It's a couple things that come to mind when you are pretending in life. You're pretending to be someone you're not. You're holding yourself out as in such a way that you're managing people's perception. So you're pretending to be smart, or you're pretending if in your job, you're pretending you know what you're doing when you actually don't. When you're pretending with people close to you that everything's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine, but really underneath you're a boiling brew of resentments and anger and vengeance and malevolence and a lot of other things going on underneath. Not being true. As Jesus said, know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Knowing the truth of what you're doing and who you're being in life that is keeping you captive, keeping you a slave, keeping you in the prison of your own mind. Because you could be in a literal prison, a physical literal prison, and still be free within yourself. Could, right? So what we're talking about here is what keeps you unfree, not free, in captivity within yourself and in your relationship to life and people in your life. Resentment, old, things that maybe you picked up early on in life, fear. I know in my life early on, my parents would travel a lot and they would take me and my sisters with them sometimes. And we take these trips, I don't know, over to India or Asia and South America. We take these trips for 3 or 4 weeks and then I'd come back and I would miss school. And then I would come back and then I had this one teacher that loved to humiliate me in front of the class. Okay, we're learning the ABCs. And then when I left for the trip, we were on F And then I come back and they're all the way down by X, and I was lost. And my parents didn't put a lot of weight in education. They just wanted me to have life experiences out there traveling. And so I'd come back and not knowing what I was doing. And then this teacher would humiliate me. But what I learned in those moments was like, just be quiet, just fade into the background, because it's dangerous because I would come back like, oh, I'd try to figure it out. And then this teacher would say things that would make the whole class laugh at me and humiliate me, embarrass me like that. But I learned that fear rose up. And in fear, I started responding to the fear inside myself. And as a kid, you make it all about yourself. So I'm like, I'm stupid. I don't know. So I'm just going to hide. And when you hide in life, you lose freedom of expressing yourself, your natural flow of expression. You lose your ability just within yourself to be free and unconstrained in moments in life. But then you grow up, we all have these situations or experiences in life when we're kids or young, and then suddenly we're living life out of a 5-year-old's or a 7-year-old's or a 13-year-old story, and we're walking around in life captive. And then we start piling on resentments and piling on blame, fault, whatever it is, but like the resentment and that kind of the emotions that rise up, those dark emotions that rise up in that space, that place of resentment, turn into your captors. They turn into an enslavement within yourself. What do you see?
So I looked up the word captivity. It's very interesting, even more interesting than freedom. The state or period of being imprisoned, confined, or enslaved. Now, from a Christian perspective, Jesus said all who sin, aka miss the mark, are slaves. Now, the second part of it is the state of being a captive or a prisoner. And then the third one's the best. The state of being under control, subjection of the will or affections, bondage. Now, the word affections is really interesting because if you take a look at a sort of captivity from an outsider point of view, and we look at such things as people who are addicted to various substances or vaping or smoking or drinking or food, it is an affection that you have for these things. You love the things that you do, but at the same time, is it your true will to do these things, to overindulge in certain things, or are you in bondage to those things? And most people that have addiction issues, whatever it may be, could be codependency on another person. There's an affection right there. You need a person, and then they withhold from you, and then that you are forever in a sort of an orbit around a person wanting or waiting for something that may never come. So there are so many different ways of looking at captivity in which you could step back and realize something about it. And that is, you don't have it. You don't have a problem. The problem has you. And that bondage is a sort of possession. These things take over our lives. And so when we talk about rising above, or in other words, either you go deeper into things or you rise out of them. And the consciousness about it, the awareness of it, is what begins to separate you from the impulse to give in. And because giving in is a sort of enslavement, right?
Yeah.
You give in to an impulse. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you try to control your actions, your habits, your habitual patterns. You try to control them. Then you try to control the people around you. You control your environments as a fix-it to being controlled in yourself. And you're captive to something in yourself. And I like how you bring up I'll say it like this, anything that you're enslaved to becomes your enslaver. And taking it even further, anything you're enslaved to, whether it's food or alcohol or drama, gossip, wrong kind of friends, anything you're a slave to, that sex, anything like that, it becomes your God. It becomes the something greater than yourself. And you miss out on, you're not available for the inner promptings. What's that in the Bible? The conscience is the hound of heaven. Is that it? But the hound of heaven, your conscience is screaming in the background, but you're so enslaved to these false gods, these things you're enslaved to in life. And so people try to clean up their lives. Okay, I'm going to go on a diet. And then it ends up a thing. They impose control, or they try to give up things. It's a lesser evil to do that. But I think you have to look deeper. You got to look deeper, and you got to come face to face with your own soul. You've got to look at what is the source of these addictions, these things that have me. I don't have these. If I had these things, if I had food, or I had alcohol, or if I have something, I still hold the power there. But to really give something up, in the physical, you could say these things that enslave, to really give them up, you've got to give up something within yourself first.
Here's a concept which I have contemplated pretty much my whole life, and that is, with regard to what you just said, release and you shall be released. Now, but the question is, because we are holding on to something. Now, addiction, the nature of addiction, and my dad actually coined this phrase, emotion is the mother of all addictions. So what are the emotions around it? You talked about drama, but does it make you feel good? And if it makes you feel good, then the nature of the addiction is that you go back to escape from feeling bad into feeling good. But then the flip side of that is usually, now that you've given in to do the things that make you feel good, you overeat, you have an extra piece of pie or whatever it is, you have a smoke after whatever, you have a drink, whatever it may be, then there's a side effect. And the side effect is your health suffers. And when your health suffers, it's actually, what is it? It's like a gauge that's telling you something's going wrong here.
It's a temperature check. Yeah, the body keeps score. It's right here in the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea is that we don't have the problems, but we give ourselves to it. And when you miss that point in time at which you could say no, right? A lot of people, when they walk past the donuts, the donut yells at them, come on. Well, it's just me. It's just a donut. And so when you reach for that donut, you have given that thing permission. Believe it or not, there's a component of giving permission to the dark things of life to become entwined with you. And when you stop giving permission, right, give yourself permission to be free from it, then it releases you. It has to. It can't hold on any longer. But if you don't give permission to be free to yourself, it's like guilt. You can feel guilty your whole life, and you could have just, let's say, repented and been sorry, and for whatever it is that's making you feel miserable and guilty, you could have just said, you know what, I was wrong. I'm sorry. And then you can move on to the next thing, but you can hold on to things. And the longer you hold on to it, it's going to hold on to you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good. It's bigger than the donut. The donut represents something.
Right.
It represents a certain weakness and impulsivity. And was it an Indian saying that within us are two wolves?
Yes.
And whichever one you feed, you strengthen. And one wolf represents like the dark side.
Right.
And feeding the beast. And then the other wolf is virtue and honor and your dignity and your own self kind of worth or worthiness.
Yeah.
And it's so when you grab the donut in those moments out of some kind of weakness, you're giving away your power and you're giving away freedom.
Yes.
That is yours at birth. It's a birthright to be free, to have a natural power in life, a God-given power to express yourself freely and to be in your natural flow in life. But we think, oh, the donut doesn't affect, just having that donut doesn't affect much. Okay, I'm just going to take more calories today. But no, it represents something bigger and greater. You're still captive. You're a slave. And you're doing things out of a kind of willfulness that the ego's willfulness that separates you from your source, from the ground of your own being. Yeah, it's like that saying that a man is rich in what he can afford to do without.
Right.
But there's something about being temperate. There's a biblical saying, Jesus said something about mastery is being temperate in all your ways. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. See, the thing is, I want to say about the donut and any other thing is that a donut it doesn't have any actual power. You think about it, even like with people who are drug addicted, the drug doesn't have a power. It alters something about you, but the drug itself is powerless. Just people who are worried about guns and gun control, but the gun has no power. It's an inanimate thing. All these things that we are tempted by, but it's not the thing that's tempting us.
Human beings have the power.
Yeah, see, within us, there's an
not
impulse.
The ultimate power, but it's the impulse within. Yeah.
What is it? And you examine, if you step back long enough to examine the impulse that causes you to reach out, that the thing itself really never had any power. The problems that you believe that you're struggling with really never had any power, including with diseases. But we feed ourselves, we struggle, we fight the disease, we feed ourselves into it like a chipper, like a wood chipper. The more we struggle and the more we fight something that we don't understand, the more energy we're giving up. And what the scripture says, it says, be still and know. You stand back and you begin to look. And a lot of people who go, there's a wonderful documentary that was on, I believe it was Amazon Prime or Netflix, but called Heal, Heal. And it's a documentary about 1,500 people who spontaneously went into remission that had terminal cancer. And they looked at the attitude change in these people. It was only the attitude change that happened to them, some realization that they had about their relationship with things and people and circumstances that happened to them in the course of their life. It was the attitude change that shifted and their health began to restore by itself. And
because that attitude change,
that's it,
changed the energy that was feeding the disease.
Yeah.
Because you see that all the time in more simple ways. I know, like, even just through when I do my yoga trainings, people getting in their bodies and moving and breathing in their bodies. And then they do some like inquiry work around just the truth of how they're living life. And you start to see that things just start lifting off people, or just the aches, pains, things they've been living with for years, migraines, back pain, neck pain, grinding your jaw at night, things that seem okay. You medicate it or you deal with the symptoms or just something I have to live with. But when you actually shift the energy of it, firstly by coming to the truth and shifting your vision, and then through forgiveness, and then you actually move your body, it's interesting how you start noticing when you're moving your body, wait, all these old aches and pains or these dis-eases where'd they go? But that old energy left their body because they had a shift in perspective, a shift in vision, a shift in how they saw themselves and saw life.
And again, we were talking about freedom, and what did Jesus say? Know the truth, and I say add 2 words into it, about yourself, and that shall make you free. If you want to be free. If you don't want to be free, then you'll just look at the truth and go, that's not the truth I want. Everybody's looking for their own brand of truth. But if you want to know the truth about yourself, then you have to look at certain things. And if you avoid those things, that's the source of disease, by the way. Dis-ease.
And it's the beginning of freedom.
Yeah.
When you start letting all those old pent up, suppressed, stuffed down energies and emotions and resentments and that dark energy, as you start giving that stuff up, suddenly freedom just arises. You can't make freedom. You can't create freedom, but it's through the truth that gives freedom.
And doctors have recognized that 80% of what's ailing us, 80% has an emotional component.
Yeah.
See? The
Yeah.
emotional component with the things that we aren't seeing. It's not what we see that's the problem. It's what we
Yeah.
aren't seeing.
Very
Do the
good.
deep
It's
dive.
like also having to confront what you're getting from being over emotional, reactive, because you get a certain kind of dopamine hit, or is it serotonin, or you get the endocrine system, you get a chemistry, a high, and you get this then superiority, or the flip side is the emotions just bring you down, but you're still getting all these states of being, I'll call it, out of these emotions. But when you start to sit back and to your point, you get still and you start to see emotions. I remember when I first really started meditating in an objective way, and from a kind of humility, just giving things up and just like wanting to watch and observe, I started observing all these old emotions just rising up. And then current emotions that were from situations I was dealing with right that day in life. But I started to see emotions were just moving like thoughts come and go, and emotions rise up and they disappear. Emotions are like gas, like flagellants, like it comes up. But if you're objective, you stand back and watch, you start to see, okay, I have these emotions, I have these thoughts, but I'm not these emotions. I'm more than that. I'm not these thoughts. Yeah, I have these thoughts and emotions, but I'm not them. And you start locating a more true and real source of power in yourself. And you get connected to a conscience that's, no, be still, watch. Wisdom is born out of that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the other side, the flip side of getting a dopamine hit from some emotion, which this is why people do a lot of things. They do it to get that feel good. But the flip side of every feel good, my dad used to say, every high is a new low. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. The idea is that we become the effect of an external cause.
Mm-hmm.
So we become outformed. And the reason why we are in a domino effect of reaction is because we keep reacting to the same things over and over again. And it's the whole definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
You keep reacting to the same things over and over again, and the same things are going to happen, and it's going to get worse until you realize, I got to stop reacting this way. I got to stop allowing those things to affect me. And there's people, you and I were talking before we started about some people that are just programmed to live their whole lives a certain way, and they don't even want to hear any other information about whether it's politics or the environment or whatever it is. They're just programmed. Their whole life they're programmed. That means they have become the ultimate effect of some external cause.
And again, they're slaves.
They're slaves.
They're in captivity.
Yeah.
They're not connected to their own inner knowingness, their own inner light, their own like thoughts that are original.
Yeah.
Rather than thoughts that are taken on, and then you don't have you're not anywhere in there. You're other people are doing your thinking for you.
That's it.
You wonder why you're not free.
That's it.
All right. Very good. I think this is a good place to wrap.
Yep.
All right, you all. Thank you for listening, or if you're on YouTube at on the Disrupt the Drift channel. Thank you. Leave comments, leave us a 5-star review. Please share the show. It's through you that we are growing the show, and the show is growing. And thank you for all the positive, amazing. You can give any kind of feedback, negative, the good, bad, ugly, but I love hearing from you. But we are getting a lot of positive feedback, and the number of downloads we're getting and the number of views is growing. And so that's great testimony that we're doing something right here. So if we're doing something right for you, please share the show, pay it forward. What you give away, you get to keep, and you as well contribute to people in your life. All right, y'all. Thank you. Be true, stay blessed. And until next time, peace be with you.